Pray for me for your sakes. I've got Kleenex here. I was tempted to wear a plaid shirt and jeans in honor of Phil, but Father Maher kind of laid down the law. I was given the honor of speaking today by Phil's wife, Diana, and I was instructed by Father Maher to try to keep it to about 4 minutes. No problem, right? In all seriousness, Father Maher has been an incredible supportive friend to Phil and his family, as have the other Jesuit priests. But how can we pay tribute to a man like Phil Taylor in 4 hours, let alone 4 minutes? What could I or any of us share with one another right now that could sum up the heart of Phil? After much thought and prayer, it seems to me that the most fair tribute we could all pay to Phil would be for each of us to go around and comfort one another, because that's what Phil would be doing with each and every one of you right now, if he could. I've been blessed to know many wonderful people. Now, if Phil heard me say that, he would joke, well, what about me? The truth is that Phil's one of the most amazing men I've ever known. But without spending a lot of time around Phil, you would never know it from him because of his humility. As one of Phil's friends, I've witnessed so much love. Phil told his wife, Diana, the heart is a muscle. The more you use it, the bigger it gets, referring to our enormous capacity to love if we exercise our hearts. Phil loved his life. He loved his family and friends, his students, his co-workers, even his bosses, who have been so good to Phil throughout his medical issues. Their son, Matt, mentioned the other day to me that Phil never said he was going to work. The list of Phil's love goes on, far more than I know, but include his scouts, his old trucks, his dog Chloe. Matt made me say that. And the documentary, Alone in the Wilderness, that he watched over 100 times, he told me. But it was because of the ingenuity, not because of the solitude. Phil was especially blessed with the ability to comfort others. He helped others by simply listening and caring without judging. He loved helping others. Phil fixed people as well as stuff. And it seemed there was nothing he couldn't fix. I actually made this big long list, but credit would take all day. I mean, engineering, plumbing, electronics, you name it, security systems, recycling, gardening. He's an artist, he self-taught photographer, the list goes on. And I have to mention, from scouting, a marksman. He was in the dime club, which means you got 10 shots within the size of a dime. And he was the only guy who could split a bullet on the edge of an axe and pop both balloons. It's awesome. When I told Phil how it seemed to me that he knew how to do everything, Phil said that much of what he learned came from his dad, but that he knew only a fraction of what his dad knows. If Phil were speaking to you right now instead of me, he would not be talking about his actions or his accomplishments. It took knowing Phil for more than 10 years to learn that he had done things like recorded Elvis Presley. I just learned that like a couple months ago while he's working for sound recording, and a bunch of other famous people. He had a high government clearance to document sensitive areas at the Air Force Base, some pretty dangerous stuff. He hung out of a helicopter and filmed a boat getting ready to go over the dam that was used in a couple of movies. He woke up in the middle of the night and drew out electronic circuit because he was trying to think of how to time something, I think for the Greyhound races, something that had never been invented. And when he got up in the morning and saw the drawing that he made, he built it, and it worked. Amazing guy. Phil was so humble. Someone like me would have been bragging to the person in front of me in line at McDonald's about even one of those things if I had done it. Not Phil. He might have talked to them, but it wouldn't have been about himself. Whenever I suggested that Phil was a genius, his answer would be, a genie's what? And I'm paraphrasing. Phil always put himself second. One example of Phil's self-giving love is when he was diagnosed with cancer. A lot of you probably know it, but he told us, "I can go through anything myself, but God knew I couldn't handle it if it happened to my family or one of my students." When asked, or during his all too frequent hospital visits, Phil would even console the nursing staff by making jokes. They often told him how much they enjoyed visiting his room for that reason. And then when they would ask him on the way out, "Is there anything else I can get for you?" Phil would always reply, "A new body," with a veiled smile that allowed them to smile in return. In the ER this September, barely able to talk, Phil asked me to get his phone and call Kenji, his good friend, Dr. Higuchi. Although unable to even answer all the ER doctor's questions, Phil was worried about letting his friend down, once again putting himself second. By the way, Dr. Higuchi was amazingly gracious and caring and asked me to assure Phil not to worry and to let him know he would be praying for him, which I did. A testament to how Phil and Diana raised their boys is that despite the heartbreak of his father's illness, their son Adam's been working multiple jobs to cover everything he could for his dad. And if he wasn't 17, I'm convinced Matt would be doing the same. No doubt inspired by his friendship with the many priests here at Gonzaga, which, by the way, Phil credited with many of his best jokes. Phil embodied the Jesuit tradition and mission. As Phil's friend and co-worker Dan Garrity said, "It's no accident that God placed Phil at Gonzaga University." Jesuits believe in educating the whole person, mind, body, heart, and spirit, believing the more whole you are, the more you can contribute to the world. Phil loved his students and strived to make them whole, just as he did for his family and many of us. Almost done. Thanks for putting up with me. If I can presume to speak for all of us, thank you, Phil, for so generously sharing your time, your many talents, your love, and your sense of humor. Thank you to Phil's wonderful parents, Bill and Marilyn, for raising such an amazing man. Thank you to Phil's beloved wife of 30 years, Diana, to Adam, Matt, and Chloe, for so often sharing Phil with us. And a special thanks to Phil's students and coworkers who so eloquently let Phil know how much he meant to them, how much they missed him when he was gone, and they made these amazing videos that they shared with him. Wow, he enjoyed them repeatedly. If I may, without permission, quote, Diana told me that Phil's mom, Marilyn, after watching these videos at Phil's bedside last week, said she was glad to know that others saw what she did in her son. Most especially, thank God for sharing Phil, including the 5 bonus years with help from Phil's physician and friend, Dr. Kaya. One final thought. I mentioned earlier that Phil kept asking for just one thing: a new body. Last Friday, December 5th, on his grandmother's birthday, he finally got one. We love you, sweet. Thank you.